Hey, what's up, everybody? Got a little live going right here with Amanda. And there we go. Oh, there we go.
There,
Oh,
there we go.
finally. I kept on pushing accept and it wasn't going. How are
Uh,
you doing?
I'm great, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for hosting.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no, of
So,
course.
how did you get into, go ahead and tell a little about yourself. We can go in any direction that you like.
Sure.
How did you get into being a cannabis doctor?
Um, so it's a long story, but basically, I come from a family of doctors. My dad's a big doctor in the neurology field. My mom is a big nurse. Um, and I come from a huge family. So there's six of us, if you can believe it. I'm the baby, and everybody else picked a different job. So doctor was the only job left. I scooped that one up, and I was a family. I am a family doctor. I did primary care because the country needed primary care doctors. When I finished medical school, and it was really honestly the people in front of me, the patients that I was seeing, that turned me on to the need for information and guidance in cannabis. Like, there was a clear need. Everybody was using it, and I was open-minded enough to hear it. And I think sometimes doctors, aren't so open-minded. But I heard patients wanting more information about it, and I wanted more information too, because everything I saw was, you know, scattered. I mean, it was just crickets. I mean, there's nothing useful in the normal medical world about cannabis. Um, and that's mostly, I learned, because doctors aren't reading it. Like, it's not that there's no information out there. It's just nobody's reading the research. I mean, we've all heard, oh, we don't know anything. We can't use cannabis because there's no research behind it. And it's just complete baloney.
Yeah.
You believe it or not, what do I call you? Should I call you Steve, Jedi, Steve, Bob?
That's good.
All
All that's good.
that's good. Okay, I like Jedi. I'll call you the Jedi.
Okay.
Um, so the information's out there, but nobody's reading it. And there's 10 times more information about cannabis than there is about the common cold or Lyme disease.
Wow.
Just imagine that. Like so much. There's so much information out there. It's just nobody's reading it. That's the catastrophe.
Yeah, it's a lot of times doctors are so busy. From what I've heard, doctors are so busy after medical school, after doing the residency, and they just get in a place that they're kind of stuck in a paradigm of where they were when they were going through it. I mean, my dad was a doctor,
Mm.
and he called psychology quackery for like the
No kidding.
longest period of time.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I know, like, some psychology is quackery, but he just called it all that in general, and that was
Yeah.
just the fact of how old he was. I mean, he was born in 1929, so I don't know
Old
what
school.
year he was going to medical school, but that was just like the fact of when he was going, the fact that of where it was at the time. Um, and I think being a corpsman in Vietnam, he could have benefit from a little psychology.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, imagine like your dad was actually pretty common. Like, you know, back in the day, physical stuff, physical illness, physical issues was pain. That was suffering. Like if you had mental concerns or psychological concerns, it was totally stigmatized. You know, you were crazy. You put you in a nut house. Like, you know, throw away the key. That's what our current culture has kind of grown up in. Those are the parents that we all kind of knew, you know, grew up in that age. It's really it's scary how far we've come, and thank God, you know, like where people who are really suffering in a lot of different ways can still get help.
So you said you're a family doctor. What is your age range of people that you work with?
Everybody. So now, I mean, as a family doc, I saw everybody. I mean, I'm a pediatrician. I also am a geriatrician, so I see all the newborns. I would deliver women. You know, I'm an OB-GYN as well. I have the great fortune not only of delivering whatever a couple thousand women in the hospital, but I've actually delivered all 4 of my own kids. So I live it. It's a dream come true for me. But in cannabis now, I see the same range. You know, this is my bread and butter. I'm comfortable with kids. I have a whole pediatrics clinic here in Massachusetts, where we see our youngest is 6 months old, and our oldest is 104. It's literally everybody. Anybody who's curious about cannabis, wants to learn about it, wants to explore how it might help them, my door's open.
Awesome. So you said like you've totally walked away from any pharmaceutical type products?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
I misread one of your little quotes.
Yeah, no, that was so. No, you read it correctly.
Yeah.
What I've been trying to do lately in the last couple months is blast patient reports, all the quotes that I'm hearing. I'm trying to bring everybody who's interested into my office space and just hear the magic that I'm hearing. Because I think honestly, there's only so much that doctors and scientists and researchers can talk at people. I think sometimes you have to hear it from your fellow man and woman.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm trying to do that. I'm actually, you know, I'm working on putting together my own podcast around that, where we're going to interview regular people about their experience with cannabis, all the good stuff, all the bad stuff, just throw it out there. I mean, there's so much to learn for everybody. And there's still people who are scared about it, you know, like we've only just begun.
I think that's where a lot of the doctors, non-doctors, people that are pushing through any type of alternative medicine, where they get into trouble is when they try to talk too much, opposed to and I feel like we as consumers can talk about our experience a lot more freely.
Yeah. I think, I mean, maybe what you mean, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but is talk sort of out of school, like talk not only things that are meaningful to them, but also sort of blur the lines of what's useful and what's true.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, I've seen that. Of course, we all have. I mean, that was the issue in politics over the last, you know, whatever, 5-10 years, that people can say whatever they want. I mean, social media is a platform for people now, and as long as you have enough likes, comments, you get vaulted out, no matter how silly what you're saying is or how truthful.
So and I've heard it this way, and I want to get your opinion on it. Does the Hippocratic Oath mean that when a patient says something that doctors do have to research it? Is it their Hippocratic Oath to research cannabis if somebody says it?
Not really.
Is that...
I mean,
Okay.
Well, the Hippocratic Oath is just it's an informal oath, which is just a promise to care about people meaningfully. You know, to not do harm, to not treat people with things that you know could hurt them, but also to not. And this is where sort of that word gets involved. If cannabis can help people, and you're not embracing it, if you're not learning about it, you're not offering it to patients, I think there's a pretty solid argument to be made that that's not the most ethical practice of medicine. And that's a weird I mean, that's a weird line, and it's shocking, and it's a little bit harsh. And there's a fair comeback. And the fair comeback is, well, what about the research? And I'm not talking about the research we were talking about before.
Yeah.
There is paper research on animals and in lab. There isn't as much research on humans and how the long-term effects of cannabis impact human life. And it is fair for doctors to say, look, I know so much more about pharmaceutical medicine, about regular therapeutic medicine. I don't know as much about how cannabis impacts people in the long term. I don't feel comfortable. I mean, they can say that. I get that they don't feel comfortable recommending it because they don't know as much. And that's totally legit. And honestly, I don't want doctors like that recommending or talking about cannabis. If they don't know it, if it's not a specialty for them, just like I don't want Sally down the road who smokes a lot of weed, she shouldn't be given medical advice either.
Yeah, for sure. Agree, 100%. That's Sally. She's always trying to do stuff.
Fucking Sally, right?
Yeah.
No, but really, you know, I think cannabis is a little bit of a mad science right now. You know, we're really getting back to our roots as humans, and certainly as doctors and as patients. It's a crazy time. You know, we as doctors get to take a step back. We are not the experts in the room anymore. You know, the folks in front of me who are long-term users. I have some patients who've been smoking weed for 80 years. That's crazy. And I'm supposed to come in telling them how it's done. You know, it's a very interesting time. Obviously there's a lot that I know which is different than what they know. But there's also a lot for me to learn. And that's an awesome position. That's a great position for me. I love learning. I want to understand what people have learned over 80 years. But that's totally unfamiliar for doctors. And that's super uncomfortable for some doctors who don't want to do that. They want to be the experts in the room. They're used to knowing it all.
Yeah, I remember one time I was on a trip. My dad did many trips traveling all over the world doing with Operation Smile and a lot of the groups helping children in third world countries. And one time I was just at one of the local trips, not the local trips, just in Mexico, like a close trip. And one of the doctors said, he goes, yeah, he's like, people always come to me and ask me questions, and it's like kind of weird because I don't always know what's going on.
Yeah.
And another guy on the same trip was saying that there was a certain, I don't remember, it was like silicone implants for chest implants, and there was another one, and one wasn't FDA approved, and there was a guy that was a pharmaceutical worked for a pharmaceutical company, and the doctor's like, oh, you should go ahead and try these small ones. I don't remember what the thing was. And he goes, well, are those approved by the FDA? And he's like, well, you used such and such before it was approved by the FDA. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Come in on Friday and schedule an appointment. But it was like so easy that those conversations that we've all persuaded people on a golf course to do stuff, how they easily just like went over because the FDA said it's approved or whatever the situation is. And I'm not against those things, but if we look at their track records, I'm not going to bow to them either.
No, for sure. I mean, what you bring up is really the humbling of the Western medical sort of ecosystem. You know, like back in the day, it was doctors doing a dance. It was shaman, you know, hoping for people, singing for people, and of course using the natural landscape, using herbs, understanding the nature around them. You know, people these days in the world of allergy are starting to get the idea that, oh, wait a minute, the stuff around me is affecting me. Like there's a combination, there's a intersection of me and my local environment. And contrast that to a pharmaceutical made in a machine that's just sort of applied to laser precise medicine. And it's really they're almost opposites, you know, where there is a natural medicine, which is me as an animal getting in touch with my local environment and the things around me which might affect my body. You know, in terms of allergy, people now know that they can collect honey in their areas, and the bees are going around buzzing around all the flowers that they might have allergies to. And then if they take the honey, they can actually reduce their allergic responses. People can become less allergic to their local environment. That is real medicine in my mind, where you're taking the earth and the plants, and you're sort of creating an ecosystem. I think cannabis is bringing us back to that reality. I mean, some people may know, some people may not know. Cannabis is a freak plant that has almost all of nature built into it. I mean, it's literally, it has pine, it has eucalyptus, it has mint, it has geraniums and roses, all of the natural chemistry inside these plants. Cannabis builds on its own. I mean, this is the amazing thing. It's like going to CVS, except it's a plant. Like they have everything that is in nature. I think that we might find useful. Obviously, there's some things that are not there. There are things about Western medicine we've learned about the heart and the eyes and surgery and sort of all kinds of things that the plant's never going to do. But there's a whole treasure chest there that is just opening up, man. I mean, we are incredibly lucky to be alive now, where this is becoming accepted. It's becoming understood. Even just that it's helpful, that it's helping a lot of people. It's a miraculous time.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked about the Hippocratic Oath earlier, and I'm don't want to take a little risk here, but what was the name of the guy that the Hippocratic Oath was named after?
Hippocratic.
Okay. Do you know much about him and how he looked at things?
So you're talking about ancient Greece, and those were the days where life was a little bit different.
Okay.
I don't know him personally. I don't know. My hunch is that
You weren't alive back then?
I was not alive. No, about that was 400, 500 years ago.
Just wondering. Go ahead.
Oh no. So no, definitely wasn't around kicking 400 years ago. But
Okay.
I'm sure he was in some respects a bastard, as most men really have been throughout history. But I think we have to take some of the good and wash out some of the bad. And the truth is there have been revisions of the Hippocratic Oath. In my medical school, actually, there were two oaths that people could offer. One was the old-fashioned one, and one was an updated, revised one.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
But no, you were going to tell me about him as a person, huh?
No, I was interested in what your thoughts are, because what I heard, he was like very, very liberal. He was into searching everything. He was the essence of what that oath is about, which I'm not really against people evolving everything, but a lot of times the updates aren't. It's not evolving something. It's just taking the most important parts out of it and just making whatever is going on for you or whatever is going on for the pharmaceutical industry sustainable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I think that the real harmony, the meat, I guess, inside the Hippocratic Oath is really to care about people. It's not anything else. It's not about industry. It's not about money. It's really just about relationships, and trying to help people when they need help. It's really kind of basic. And I think a lot of that sentiment has been lost in modern medicine. I often hear about people going to their doctor, and the doctor just doesn't listen anymore. Doctor doesn't know who they are. They're just a number or just a disease. That's the reality of modern medicine now, which is horrible, obviously. But it's also a catalyst for the cannabis industry. If people weren't burned, if they were totally happy with how things are, why would they look somewhere else? Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, with every door that closes, there's always another side to it that opens.
Did you ever read the book Blink?
I have, yeah, sure.
Oh yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell, right?
Yeah. And one of the parts in there, he talks about how they're trying to figure out where he's my second favorite author. He was talking about they're trying to figure out why doctors were sued, like doing raw data for that. And they looked, did they pass their boards? Did they go to these colleges? Did they go, and they all figured it out was just spending 3 minutes more with their client.
Yeah.
That came to the difference between the doctors getting sued. And
Yeah.
there's even some times that the surgeon made a mistake, but they thought it was the anesthesiologist, and when they found out it was the surgeon, they liked the surgeon, so they ended up not suing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's and similar work has been done to discover that if doctors just apologize, that they're sued less. If they just act like normal humans, be compassionate the way they used to be. But you know what, Jedi Steve, this is an awesome time for doctors to not only be doctors, but to be mad scientists. And for the few people that are here, I actually brought some special stuff, and I don't know if we're going to record this or we'll just let it die in live land. But I brought some special treats, namely ways that people can make their own medicine at home. And that's one of the coolest things in my book about cannabis, is that it doesn't have to be made by a company. Products that work don't have to be made by anybody except you, and you can make it with the stuff that you can grow in your own backyard. And that's also a revolution about plant medicine. There's nobody's going to make heart medicine. Nobody's going to make ocular drops, but you sure as heck can make cannabis medicine at home. When we get to it, I don't want to take over your agenda, but I'm thrilled to show people how they can have control.
My only agenda is not having an agenda.
I love
it. Yeah, so go ahead.
Cool.
Go ahead and share something.
Awesome. So one of the cool things that makes me love what I do is I get to be a complete nerd, and I get to go to the library and pick up the research. This is one of the things that I try to bring to the rest of the world. So one of the things to know is I've built a library which is including all of the published literature in cannabis, as much as I can find, both on the doctor medicine side, the science side, the laboratory medicine side, even how to grow and how to process. All that stuff is free for anybody who wants to read. And what I love to do is I take some of that reading and I put it into organized form for me. And there's nothing really to read here. It's just a 1,000 pages of what the stuff inside cannabis does. And what I do is I learn about what's been studied. And first it starts ugly like this, like notebooks. And then after that, I organize it into other things like this. This is a table of some of the chemistry inside cannabis, as well as some of the boiling points for those compounds. And let me break that down a little bit. If a certain compound in cannabis has a boiling point, just like water, if you heat water up to 212, you start getting steam. It boils off. If I heat up a nug of flour at 349 degrees Fahrenheit, a compound inside that flour called limonene starts to boil. And that's a little bit like taking limonene as a medicine, because you heated that flour up to 349. And if you know, not only that limonene heats up at that temperature, but you also know that it works as an anxiolytic. It stops anxiety. It helps people calm down. If you know that it's anti-diabetic, that people who have high blood sugar can actually lower their blood sugar just with that limonene. If you know that it's antiviral, that when limonene is in your system, it actually can suppress viral replication. Viruses don't grow as much. They don't replicate. All of a sudden, you have control over your own medicine simply because you have a heating device and a nug of flour. Isn't that crazy? I mean, that's just insane. Like, all of a sudden, you have this wealth of medicine in your hand, and you don't need anybody to do. You have the control over it. So what I do is I take that knowledge and I tinker. We just had Chef Jordan is here. Hey, good to see you, man. He does this too in the kitchen, but I don't cook, and I wouldn't try. but what I can do is chemistry. And what I do is I'll take a couple nugs of flour and I'll put them into an old pasta jar. That's as close to pasta as I get. And people who are savvy might notice that this looks a lot like Rick Simpson oil, except thinner. And what this is, used to be flour and a bunch of leaves and a bunch of sticks and a whole pile of alcohol, whole grain alcohol, Everclear alcohol. And I let it sit for a year and I mashed it every so often and eventually I strained it out. And right now I have alcohol tincture, but most of the alcohol I've evaporated. So it's actually mostly cannabis oil. Just like you can go, I mean, if you really wanted, you could go to the store and spend, I don't know, that would probably cost a few $100. You can just do it yourself. And what I do with that, I take that oil and I've evaporated the alcohol. I will mix it with, hey, if we want to do sexual lubricant, you can get coconut oil. This is Trader Joe's. Plain coconut oil. You can mix the two. And guess what? You have lube, DIY lube. Or if you had something a little bit less oily, say you had Cetaphil lotion, you can you can mix the Rick Simpson oil or the cannabis concentrate oil with Cetaphil and you have your DIY lotion. That's the basic sort of scaffolding of how to make your own stuff. It's pretty easy. I mean, if I can do it, I'm no chef. Anybody can do it.
Yeah, for sure.
And cooler than that, as you learn about cannabis, if you learn about limonene, if you learn about linalool and what they do and where you can get them, you can actually buy some of these terpenes online now. And you can put in terpenes, you can put in lemon smell, you can put in eucalyptus, and you can not only make it smell the way you want, but you can learn what those do, and maybe you can absorb some of the benefits that they're offering. It's really incredible time. I mean, there's no other time in history where we have as much knowledge as we do to be able to give this power to people at home.
So what happens to, and I don't want to poo-poo on them, but I want to compliment you, but what happens to a teacher that loses that excitement for something, or a doctor that loses that excitement and they don't want to continue to learn and they just want to focus on the negative that's about there? What happened to you, or what's happening to you on a consistent basis that you want to keep that childlike excitement?
Honestly, I think that there's a natural course to those kinds of situations. You know, someone who is a jerk, someone who's negative, someone who's not appreciating the value in what they're doing, I think people walk. You know, like I don't want to be around that doctor, and probably their patients, you know, hopefully their patients find someone else. You know, I think especially these days when people have the right to go anywhere they want, and we have the internet to find anybody that appeals to you, there's a tremendous amount of power we have as individuals. You know, in terms of the spark, and you know, underneath your question is a little bit, you know, what happens to the spark and where does that spark go? I don't know. I mean, some of it I think is individuals. You know, there's some doctors are burned out by the system. You know, as doctors, we want to help people. Most doctors want to help people. We grew up thinking, oh, we were going to save the world and cure cancer and all these things. And the reality of medicine is that we have to do a lot of paperwork, and doctors don't make that much money anymore, and they don't have any power to think outside of the box. Like most doctors these days work for a bureaucracy. I mean, the chief of the department tells you what you can do, tells you what you can't do, and you don't have much wiggle room. And these are some of the smartest people on the planet. You know, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of knowledge, and they're just put into little boxes and told to be monkeys. It's a recipe for disaster. I think that's why we have a broken system. You know, that's very different from my world.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that there's you know, the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, of course.
So they have a Grand Canyon that is the American side, and then they have a side that's the Native American side. Mm-hmm. And on the American side, I couldn't think of a better way to say that. But on the American side, they have places. Oh, don't stand. They have a rail, and they say don't stand close to the rail, and all these different things, and people fall all the time. On the Native American side, they don't have any of those things telling you not to do that, and people never fall.
Right.
So a lot of times these ability to lie are things that they tell us to do to protect ourselves, and ultimately we're not protecting ourselves. What we're doing is we're cutting off our own personal responsibility and giving it to somebody else that doesn't necessarily have our best interest.
Yeah, and as much as that sucks, and I don't want to defend that sort of apathy, but as much as that sucks, we all have a lot to learn. And and I think even some acceptance, open-mindedness, even if it's crappy, is better than nothing. You know, I've had the privilege of watching the sort of evolution of doctors, and I remember it even 4 or 5 years ago. Doctors were like, "Are you crazy? Like, why would you ever use cannabis? That's a pathway to heroin and LSD and being a drug dealer."
How long ago?
That was 5 years ago. Really recently. I mean, I'm in a pretty stuffy medical area. We have PH in some of the top hospitals in the world. But doctors were totally closed-minded to it. I mean, at the time, they hadn't had patients telling them how much it was helping, or they weren't listening. We're graced by Dr. Rice here. Thanks for joining, man. So I'm sure he'd echo my statements that, you know, doctors were afraid of it. We weren't taught about it. But things have changed in the last couple of years. Patients, thank God, are telling their doctors, "No, look, cannabis is helping me," or "I'm curious about it. Can you talk to me about it? Can you teach me about it? It seems like it's helping everybody else. What's missing here?" Honestly, the cannabis movement, if you think about it, all of the laws in this country were against cannabis. I mean, you can't hold it, you can't sell it, you can't buy it, you can barely grow it. All of the laws were against cannabis, and yet still it's becoming legal everywhere. You know, that's only to the public's credit. That's the people who are like, "No, the establishment is wrong. The doctors are wrong. The politicians are wrong. This needs to be legal."
Sure. Yeah, that's how important, like, the collective push is on certain things, and a lot of things that I do with meditation and different things that when I'm talking to people, I'll even open it up to it's a placebo effect. I'm fine with that. I don't personally look for validation from anybody for things that I do, but also I don't want to be somebody that forces something. I mean, like, I may be making this up in my mind, and I just like laugh about it, and that for some people, they want specific answers, a lot of research and stuff, and I was just like, I'm gonna probably not be able to do this anymore if I do that. I mean, for my personal path. Go ahead.
Jedi, and this is really a Jedi moment. That is accidental brilliance right there. And I'm gonna tell you about two phenomena, and I'm gonna let you draw the same conclusion. In medicine, randomized controlled trials is like the gold standard of how we study stuff, and it's a certain independent variable against the placebo effect. 30% of the time, if you can believe that, almost a third of the time, the placebo effect will work. And we think about it this sugar pill idea, but we don't know what's happening. But, you know, 30% of the time, people get better. Take that to the side. I want you to consider something else then. There's this crazy herb that it seems to be good for everything. My God, there are people who have headaches. It seems to cure that. There are people who have vaginal pain. Boy, it seems to do well there. People have back pain. Oh my God, it seems like it's good for everything. Not 100% of the time, but an interesting large percentage of the time. And on the one hand, we don't know what causes the placebo effect. On the other hand, we're starting to learn about this. Oh my God, there's a whole system called the endocannabinoid system, which is in everybody and seems to be doing some kind of cool stuff.
Well, I think, and this is me being in the know spiritually. I think the placebo effect has to do with what gurus have been saying for a long time. There's lots of gurus that are out there, but it shows that the body naturally heals itself.
For sure. But I mean, no, I think what we've been trying, medicine has been trying to paint a picture missing a pretty sizable puzzle piece. You know, the endocannabinoid system is a foundational hormone in the human body. I mean, it's in almost every cell. It's a fundamental way that we communicate. Our cells communicate. It's a feedback mechanism that stops things from going wrong and rights things that have gone wrong. You know, to imagine that we can practice medicine without like dopamine or without serotonin seems silly, right? Like how can you know what a human is if you don't have dopamine or if you don't have serotonin understanding? I think the same thing is true of the endocannabinoid system. You can't have baseball without a bat, man.
Yeah. Have you heard of Wim Hof or the Iceman?
Have I heard of the Iceman?
Yeah. His name is Wim Hof, Wimhof.
I mean, I know from the comics, Iceman.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So this guy, Wim Hof, his wife committed suicide 30 years ago.
Oh.
And after his wife committed suicide, and so rarely will a woman with children commit suicide. I think he had 4 children. And he was somewhere in Europe and up in like the mountains, and his intuition told him to go into the cold. And he ended up breaking 28 world records based on being so he can stay in cold and keep his vitals at the same level for an hour and a half.
Wow.
And he broke 28 world records, and like 2 of them have to do with extreme heat, like running a 100-mile marathon in extreme heat with no water, without drinking any water. So mainstream media, mainstream medicine studied him, and it was awesome that he would happen to be an identical twin. Do you want Dr. Russ to join us?
No, he was just saying if he wants to jump in on the discussion, of course.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Welcome.
I didn't know if like you owed him money or something, so I just didn't want to like make it really awkward.
No, we're all. It's just a community of love, man.
Yeah, I'm just checking. Hello.
Hey, Russ.
So
Hey Ben, how you doing?
Let me finish talking about
Go ahead.
Talking about Wim Hof. So he ends up breaking the record, and mainstream medicine studied him, and he was able to put poison into his body, and with breath and with this breath that he learned from going in the cold and the mental mindset, he was able to do it. So I would take a look at that, because one of the things I tell people in layman's terms, that cold showers do the same thing that CBD does in some ways. If somebody's not necessarily open to it, and I'm all about experiential. I don't really even talk much about cannabis. When people come to my parties, I like to partner with people like you, but I will sit there and say, just like, it's all about the experience. I'm not here to tell you what it is and what it isn't. I mean, does your back feel better? Try this sample, that situation.
Right on.
So why don't you go ahead and introduce the other doctor?
Russ, well, no, I'll leave it to him. Russ, you have the stage.
that was the best introduction.
That's awesome. I love those, man. Those are the best introductions. I don't even know. I saw what you guys were talking about, but I didn't hear a room reset. But anyway, yeah, Ben, I've been following your stuff for a while, and I do know who Wim Hof is. I live in a ski town. I'm a cardiac surgeon. Here's my bio. I'm a cardiac surgeon, and I think outside the box. And so, this in the ski towns, there's a lot of people doing all kinds of alternative stuff, big, chiropractic, naturopaths, breathing methods. And I actually I started a performance medicine clinic with a guy named Eric Hyden, who won 5 gold medals, right? Some people may know him. And so I've gotten exposed to some of those high performance people. And that breathing is really incredible, really important. So I do acknowledge Wim Hof. I think he's a freak of nature, but it's all in the mind, right?
Did you know he has an identical twin?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So that's
I just find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And now the highest performance guys and women do a lot of that ice bath breathing and all that stuff. It's crazy. But what I wanted to jump in, because you were talking about the placebo effect, which actually we know by science is it's a real thing. But to Ben's point, the endocannabinoid system is, it's actually I think one of the biggest tragedies of our time, right? Because, I hate talking about myself, but let me just back up and say one thing. 2 years ago, I was the CEO of a company, a startup that we were backed by Bill Gates's Invention Science Fund. And the whole point of what I wanted to do before the whole thing blew up because of greed and all the other stuff that goes into that, was to develop cannabis products for the clinics, right? I mean, the way I see it, you should be going to get, knee surgery, and the anesthesiologist should say, "Do you mind, is it Bob? No, what's your first name?"
I go. My first name's Steve.
Steve, right? And if the anesthesiologist would say, "Hey, Steve, do you mind if we use a cannabis-based anesthetic today instead of a narcotic-based anesthetic, right? Or opioid, right?" That's my vision, right? And that's real. And this one of the sad things is that because of the last several generations, and I don't know whether it was their mindset or what it was, but I mean, here we are in the middle of a pandemic where they were doing research on shit that can really kill you and kill half the world, but you weren't even allowed to do research on cannabis. I mean, what was it, Ben? Like, you were allowed to get like an ounce? Like, there was like 4 people in the country that were allowed to get like an ounce every 6 months?
It's not quite that dramatic. And by the way, it was racism. That's plain and simple what it was. It was politicians trying to suppress the black vote, black strength.
Interesting.
To some extent, there was some Mexican anti-Hispanic sentiment, not far off from what we saw in the last administration. But yeah, no, I wouldn't mince words about it. It's very plainly racism.
I thought they were coming down on teenagers when I was in the 80s.
But this was going to corrupt your teenagers like the black.
Yeah.
Whatever it was.
I see.
It was not anything complex. It was. So wait a minute. Let me elaborate, because racism certainly was the thrust, but it began with greed too. There's a guy named William Randolph Hearst in the 30s that he owned the paper companies. He owned the newspaper companies. He also owned the trees that the paper was made from. And an invention called the decorticator came out, and it could chop up hemp and make paper faster than he could make out of his oak trees. So he made a deal with Harry Anslinger to make it illegal. And Anslinger, as a good Catholic, racist, brought it up and found his way to make it a racist agenda. Same like Trump did.
Well, my only point was that, we were blocked from really doing the real research.
I'm sorry,
now,
I was going to jump on that too. So actually, doctors and scientists can study cannabis. All you need is FDA license, which isn't that hard to get. But part of the problem was
now you can.
You could then too, even as a Schedule 1 since 1930, whatever. It's studyable. Just you have to go through the rigmarole to get the license, and researchers just didn't want to do it.
That's amazing that they didn't want to do it, right? Because now
crappy weed too. So not only were they blocked from an easy path, but the stuff they were studying was crap anyway.
Oh, see, this is why I joined, because I'm learning so much. So anyway, just like the number of grants that have come out in the last couple of years to just study the mechanism of action. I mean, there's a million of them, like you mentioned. I mean, everything from, anti-anxiety, anorexia, pain, they're all real. And I absolutely used when I was younger. I don't use cannabis right now. I don't have a need for it. But I do use CBD, right? And that's real, I mean, there's a real effect there. And we don't even know all the mechanisms actually. I mean, we've defined the endocannabinoid system, but all the compounds that are in it. So I think this is a great conversation. I'm actually, I'm the smallest minority ownership you can have in the pharmacies. I think is I don't know, but I do have some stock or some ownership in the pharmacies we have here in Utah, of all states. Because I totally believe in it. I don't know what we have to do to get our colleagues. I think we're also going up against big pharma. You probably know that the Altria Group and those guys and Philip Morris, I mean, they own some of the best land in the world to grow this stuff. And it's going to be really interesting how I think all the laws for banking and the SEC and the federal stuff that's preventing this, it'll all ironically all be opened up at the same time, right? As the pharmaceutical people are ready in the supply chain and what they need to do. And then unfortunately the young guys or the young businesses are going to be struggling, right? Because right now it's more than a cottage industry, but it's not corporate America, right? And it's amazing time to be an entrepreneur in this space. Really, really is. And I promote any entrepreneur, but especially in this space. I think we cannot learn enough fast enough and get enough products out there. But it's going to be interesting to see how it rolls out when the Fed lightens up and big pharma gets in, and then there's already big hedge funds in it. So I'll shut up. I'll probably leave. But I really appreciate it.
I want to ask both of you a question real quick. So as a family practitioner and a cardiologist, are there a lot of doctors that are just like you said, you're outside of the box? Are a lot of doctors just focused on what their area of the body is? And is it important for them to just like have an understanding with the other parts and understand like collaborating with other doctors, which I believe they do, but having a full understanding of the full body, how important is that?
Russ, you want to take a stab?
Oh yeah, sure. So I was going to let you go, Ben, but so doctors they're rule followers, okay? They're risk adverse rule followers. And then unfortunately, they also, I think that the cannabis industry, didn't have all the randomized data for it, and it's federally illegal. And so the last, they literally, I don't know what it is, but the ones that I talk to, it's ironic, right? Because a lot of them use, right? So you go to I went to the Neil Young concert, man, with a bunch of docs, and they were all using. But when it comes to their patients, I think the education wasn't there. And so even if the field looked really legit, say it wasn't a bunch of people that were more liberal and more free thought, and it was just this real, stuffy group of people, they still wouldn't do it if it was federally illegal and the hospital didn't, condone it. So I just think that it's a shame. But then all of a sudden, if we can get enough education out there, and they see enough people, can I tell one quick little story?
Yeah, for sure.
So we change valves, like heart valves, for a living, right? And I remember one of the things that opened my eyes, and this was a while ago. I was at a conference, and we were talking about changing valves, and the one lady was, I think, probably 91, right? And she had lost a lot of weight because of her valve. She probably went from 110 down to 85 pounds or 75 pounds. And when they presented it, they said, well, how's she doing now since her valve surgery? Because she got her valve changed. And the guy's like, oh, she's doing great. She's walking. She feels she can get up and down the steps. She goes out with her grandchildren, and she's gained 20 pounds. She's back up to 92 pounds from 75 or whatever. And then he goes, well, but I have to disclosed that her grandson turned her on to medicinal marijuana, and she claims that it's the only thing that stimulates her appetite. And then I practiced in Colorado for the last 5-6 years, and I'm shocked at how many people actually are on medicinal cannabis in states where it's legal, and now to me it's commonplace in the history to just say, okay, what do you take, and do you use marijuana? What are you using it for? And when they say I use it for my arthritis, I use it for anxiety, I use it for sleep, I don't even bat an eyelash, because I'm like, that's awesome, because you know what? I would hate to hear them say, well, I take Valium and I take lorazepam and I take, Oxycontin, right? That makes me cringe because I've seen so many people in these states where it's legal actually benefit from it. What's your answer, Ben? Why do docs not adopt it?
Well, so the question, I mean, what I heard was sort of are doctors kind of staying in their lane, and is the food doctor,
Right.
is there any hope for them to embrace something new? And the truth is, I think we're in a very special new period here, which is just the birth of medical cannabis. And some crazy guy like me can do a little bit of formulation and a little bit of education and a little bit of everything, because it's all new and there's so much for all of us to learn. I think there will be a time very soon, hopefully in our lifetimes, where there's going to be too much to learn within cardiology, and we're going to need people that are experts already in the heart to focus on the endocannabinoid system as it relates to the heart. We have endocrinologists, which are the folks who sort of specialize in hormones and communication and kind of cross system action. But I think cannabis is even beyond that. I mean, cannabis is that. It's certainly a hormone and it does cross all the systems, but it does affect each body part in really unique ways. And I think you have to have a specialist for that. So I think eventually we will need that, but right now it's just a huge playground.
Yeah, like for me, yeah, I guess you call, critical care medicine, is a specialty. In fact, you could divide medicine like in hospital, out of the hospital, right? And so critical care medicine, a lot of it is, let's say, generic care in the sense that all these people in the ICUs are on ventilators and they're sick and they're in pain. And, I would just love to see it start there. Just if we could do one thing where like every doctor knows, about anxiety and agitation and, all the things that happen, especially when somebody puts a tube in your throat and you wake up and you got this plastic tube in your throat and you can't breathe. There's a lot of anxiety there. And what do we do now? We slam these patients with morphine and Ativan and benzodiazepines. I mean, but after open heart surgery, by 12 hours, your body's already saturated with these traditional drugs, that could literally, land you an opioid addiction. And I see no reason why, we just can't. Yep, exactly. Give them something that's just going to, and it's on formulary, so the nurses know, so it's automatic. So yeah, I think there's a lot of individual stuff to learn per body part, per discipline. But we could start with just the big ones, the real big ones like pain and anxiety, right? And then, some of the other ones, because it's already proven, I think. I mean, I don't. Do you need any more proof, Ben? I mean, I don't need any more proof.
I definitely don't, but the world does. And one of the things, actually, Russ, I don't know if I told it to you last time we were chatting, maybe new since then. Random House is going to publish my book and distribute through the whole country next year.
Sweet. Nice.
So yeah, no, that's first
What's the name of the book? Do you have a title yet?
It's going to be something like Handbook for Grown-ups or Guided Cannabis for Grown-ups.
Yep.
It's one thing to write a cannabis book and to have it sort of thrown into the coffee section, but this is a big distribution deal. I think it's going to be an awesome opportunity for all of us to share in some education and some open dialogue. Obviously, with any book, there's a tour, and these people are going to pay for conversations on TV, and hopefully the dialogue will grow.
Well, I'll definitely be passing those out at my cannabis wellness parties for sure.
I'll set you a whole box for free, man. We'll hook you up.
It definitely can be done. I mean, I experienced this when we went from. I mean, come on, people, when they think of Utah, they're like, man, it's a red state and everybody's conservative. But when we went through the process to get the pharmacies, right, or dispensaries. We have 16 and they let 8 of them out. But I am amazed at how quickly the state threw resources at it. So we have the Utah Cannabis Center or something like that. The website is actually pretty amazing with education. And immediately the university adopted some curriculum for doctors, where you can take a quick, CME course for like, 3-4 hours, learn just the basics. I mean, not about everything, but the simplest question is like, patient walks in your office and says, Doc, I don't want to take, this, I don't want to take a narcotic, or I don't want to take, some, stimulant for my appetite. Can I take cannabis? And those docs have no answer because they don't know how to get them a card. They don't know where to send them. They're not even aware that there's other providers down the street in their state that are, cannabis specialists like you. And, but I was amazed that once they made the decision that, okay, we were going to go down that road and Utah is going to be a legal state, how the resources actually came about. So it can definitely happen. It's just literally getting the momentum behind a sea change, so that the resources can be allotted where they need to go.
I think as a doctor, go ahead.
No, go.
I didn't know.
Go
No, it's all you.
So I think as a doctor, thinking outside of the box, but also as an entrepreneur, thinking out of the outside of the box. It's interesting. I had this homeless guy one time that approached me, and he was spending time on a college campus, and he said that he used to just go up to the 3rd floor of this building every night and just like watch TV with a pitcher of beer. And then there was always trouble for a lot of the students to get rooms to hold their meetings on campus, because they said you have to have a room to hold a meeting. And then you couldn't because of the janitorial. And one time I asked somebody that was the assistant dean of professional studies, that was in a high level, that she went on for 5 minutes talking about how they took this room because it was available. It's so hard to get rooms. And then we have this homeless person that was able to go on the 3rd floor and drink a pitcher of beer, because they teach you to jump through hoops, and sometimes being so. I mean, I went to 8.5 years of Catholic school. I know, I know how that system works.
Yep, I was there myself.
I know, you could just walk over 2 steps and go this way too. Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I went to a ton of Catholic school.
Yeah.
It's probably why I don't have that much faith anymore.
Yeah.
Too much school.
What did you wanted to say, Dr. Caplan?
I was just gonna throw a challenge at the people that happen to be here, a fun challenge, and also to open up the dialogue.
Can I do
back to what
the challenge too? Can I do the challenge too?
Everybody, of course.
Okay.
So there's a compound which is hepatoprotective. It protects your liver. It actually relaxes your arterial system. It's known to have effect with arthritis and lung cancer. It's actually an antibiotic against one of the worst microbes in the world, the Pseudomonas aeruginosa. It also helps with salmonella infections. Those I'm sure people have heard about. And it also seems to help with Alzheimer's disease. And most people are thinking, what is this pharmaceutical? But I would almost guarantee that most people have this in their cabinet right now. And I'm talking about cinnamaldehyde, and it's cinnamon.
Oh, cinnamon. I was like, cinnamaldehyde. What's that? I don't have that.
That's the active component that gives cinnamon the cinnamon flavor. And you know what? That's also in cannabis. That's one of the terpenes that's found in cannabis. Like I was saying before, this plant is just a pharmacy, just a natural pharmacy. And when we start looking at what's already there, we discover all these sort of things that are already in our life. We just don't know how to use them. We haven't learned. And if nothing else, the science of cannabis medicine is just learning about nature. It's just learning what's already here.
I heard this quote, and I don't even know if it's true or not, but it works. is somebody said, anytime you need something, the Buddha says it's near and it's free. And I've used that a lot of times. And that's one of the reasons, and I try to be a voice for why greed is bad, not from a standpoint that it makes things like, as Dr. Rice was saying earlier, that it makes things so they're not sustainable, because you get greed and you try to you have this golden goose that's laying an egg on a consistent basis that will call your body, and then all of a sudden you want to make it better now, and you squeeze it and you do it. So it's an example of sustainability, and very powerful. Go ahead. Somebody said
No, you said.
they love cinnamon. Go ahead. So,
I think it's awesome. I got to split because I actually was,
sounds good.
but I really appreciate it. But that's what Hippocrates said. Let food be thy medicine, but they should also let the herb be thy medicine. Because man, this we talk about. I've been around medicine now. I've been practicing like almost 30 years. It's incredible. But we all know these like game changer events. Some of them are procedures, like heart transplants in my field, and bypass, antibiotics. But I actually think that the biggest advance in medicine is going to come out of the cannabis field. I mean, it's just going to, and I can't wait, because like one of the things that I was going to say when I first joined was, I would trade alcohol, any day. I mean, it's not even, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you said, hey, we could either have one or the other, man, I would get rid of alcohol right now and allow, but a lot of people don't realize how lethal alcohol is, especially when you're in withdrawal. I mean, when I was at the VA, the only patients we really lost were people that were trying to withdraw at the same time they were going through, heart surgery. And even narcotics don't kill you that way with withdrawal, but alcohol will kill you. So, I just think that this is going to be the biggest game changer that we've seen in terms of, therapeutics, mental health, and getting rid of the entire opioid and, crisis. So, hey guys, thank you so much for letting me join. It's amazing, these apps. It's just incredible that we can have these great conversations.
Yeah, totally.
And thank you for being in the trenches, speaking with a lot of people that I rarely get to, and thanks for being with them every day and pushing all this forward.
Yeah, no, thanks for everything you guys do. So have a great weekend. I guess it's Friday, isn't it?
Yep.
All right. Take care. Yep.
Good to see you. Yeah, no, it's an incredible time, and I guess I have made it my personal mission to make this what it should be. And I'm hopefully gonna be around for a long time. I'm young enough and I guess ballsy enough to really fight the man and make it happen.
Also, wherever you write down your goals or your mission statement, feel free to write, how can I leverage Jedi Steve for this mission?
Sounds good. Well, I see you're in marketing, right? So
yeah, I'm in marketing, and as a Bob Marley impersonator, we could get a lot of meeting with me taking your books over to Congress. We get a lot of media attention.
Funny, I had a venture a couple years ago, I guess now, with Bob Marley's family. And they're very much in cannabis, as you probably know.
For sure.
But they're interested in getting American education and leadership. And I was in discussions with them. I mean, evidently they have this huge resort, and they invited me down, and it was all lavish and stuff. But it didn't end up being a match. There's a lot of stuff that I don't want to be a part of. Part of my mission is not just to support cannabis, but to bridge cannabis to the regular doctors. And I can't do that being around silly folks who are doing silly things.
So it's If Perry. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but that's what it says on there. They asked, is there any way that they can access your library?
Yeah. no, I just typed in. So
Okay,
anybody
my
who
bad, my
goes
bad.
to, I mean, honestly, the easiest way is my what is it called? Like the link tree, the jump drive. It's actually
Yeah, yeah.
a campsite on my profile. Has a direct link to the library.
Awesome.
And for those who don't know, I basically packaged the world's largest library of cannabis publications. It's everything that gets published about cannabis, whether it's about growing or processing, or there are a couple books on there, like whole books. You know, I want the barriers to education to fall. There's no reason that anybody should have to be, you know, worry about paying for something. You know, we all need to learn, and we all need to depend on other people who are learning too. So yeah, no, I'm doing my part.
Beautiful. Would you like to, do you think that's a good ending, or would you like to wrap it up in any way?
Yeah, no, I didn't realize how time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, no, so I mean, there aren't too many people left anyway, but no, thank you. If Perry, I guess, is that IF stand for something? But yeah, no, it's a privilege to be here. I love chatting about cannabis. You know, hopefully we can do this again as the world inches closer to a sane place when it comes to cannabis. If people are interested, I'm always open. You know, my DMs I keep wide open in case anybody wants to learn more, or you know, if I can network and help people get into the industry, I'm eager to do that. For people that want a more personal experience, I also, you know, I see people across the world who are interested in learning how cannabis sort of fits their lives and how it can help them. But yeah, no, I appreciate everybody being here and listening. These things are Eileen. Nice to meet you, Eileen.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everybody who comes. I mean, you know, I'm just a voice unless other people kind of carry it and it means something. And, you know, everybody's teaching me, and that's how I get to be where I am. So I think we're all a community.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I would be open to doing this once a month. I think that would be a good blend. Go ahead.
That sounds great. I have a whole team that's trying to bring me into the videocast world. So maybe we can have you and we can do a swap. But you know, I'm open. Let's
Yeah,
keep
sure. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
man.
you very much.
Yeah. Take care.
Okay. Peace.